DivaDance really gave me the confidence and empowerment to do so many things that I never thought I would do as an adult. Just having the space to just build your confidence, you are going to want to be a part of it.
This is a happy place for me, and I'm back in a happy place.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. So excited to be here with you. My name is Dr. April B., and I am the coordinator for Inspire and Build for DivaDance HQ. And I am so excited today to talk about a really important topic of friendship. Friendship is a common and important practice in all of our lives. But what if we found ways to explore friendships in a healthier way, in a ways that improves our mental health and just improves our quality of life as a whole? Well, we're really about to dive into that in this segment, so get ready. There's a lot of people that share how important friendship is in their life, whether it's just our everyday people. I think you all heard our last episode. We talked about how DivaDance saved their lives, and a lot of things that we talked about were some of the friendships and the community that's built. But we also see it with celebrity friendships as well, and just even how people teaming together versus coming apart really helps people to succeed together. One of my favorite examples is Meg and Glorilla going on tour together. In the rap industry, sometimes we see a lot of division, but to see two queens of the game coming together and just showing friendship, showing collaboration is a really great example on how friendship can really help enhance not only the person, but enhance people around them. And so we have an amazing guest here today that's going to talk to us about it. I actually had the privilege to meet her at a conference a couple of years ago, and she was selling and showcasing her top cards, which I know she's going to share today in this segment. And so I thought she was literally the most perfect person to share this conversation about friendship. So everyone, let's welcome Anyea Anderson. How are you feeling today?
Everybody. I'm good. I'm feeling great. Hello, everybody.
Yes, I'm excited. So since we're here, I want to go ahead and give you a question to kind of open up things as we start talking about it. What makes someone a great friend to you?
To me, a great friend is somebody who is supportive, whether it be emotional, physical, or even like that spiritual support. Somebody who's loyal, somebody that I can trust, somebody I can feel safe to communicate with. Those type of things build friendship for me. It's really important. And respect, loyalty, trust, opening ear, like an open door policy. Those are the main things for me.
I totally hear that. Heavy on the respect one and heavy on just the open door policy. Somebody that you can come to and you feel safe. So I so agree. I can't wait for you to unpack this in a therapeutic sense. So Anyea is a licensed clinical social worker. And so that means she has the therapeutic and clinical background and practice on helping people navigate relationships. And so while she's going to share some of her personal testimonies around this, she also has this professional lens that gives the data and the background of how to really make friendships work. So I'm really excited about this. But before we dive into that, I do want to give a shout out to our partnership, which is with Hers. Hers is a mental health platform that isn't a one-size-fits-all situation. And it also explores that medication is not a dirty word. Sometimes that's exactly what helps. Hers connects you with licensed providers who personalize a treatment plan that works for you, from anxiety and burnout to the can't get out of bed kind of fatigue. No insurance, no waiting rooms, no fluff, just real support and FDA approved treatment, 100% online. So if you're ready to take one small but powerful step, go to DivaDanceInspireandBuild.com and follow the link for a free mental health assessment. It could be the beginning of you feeling more like you again. So thank you again to Hers for making this space possible for us. All right. So now that we have you introduced, we have you ready, I'd just like to ask you a few questions just to learn more about friendship and how important it is in this space. So first, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself of what led you to this work and focusing on friendships, personally and professionally, and why do you think it's so important to do this intentional work around friendships?
Okay. So as Dr. April stated, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I relocated, I'm originally from New Jersey. And so we're going to start off with like a personal story first. I relocated from New Jersey when I was about 30 years old, and I came down here with maybe like 2 or 3 cousins that were supportive. Um, and just my daughter and I had, at that time I was in a relationship to pursue graduate school. Finished graduate school, got my associate license. I'm working, started building friendships, right? Um, Life started lifing and life happened. Went through a breakup, went through some hard personal trials and everything. And I found myself not comfortable in my friendship circle or even in my family circle to express how I was feeling or what I was going through. So I was going through it alone. And so I said to myself, what way could you or could I be able to express myself without basically telling people my whole story or exactly telling them what I was going through? So at this time, I was already in the therapeutic realm. I was working in the behavioral health unit at one of the local hospitals. And then I also was already providing, anger management and therapy for other individuals in the private practice realm. And so I started to make a conversational starter, like conversational starter cards, and just writing down different questions that you could just ask in a group of friends so that you don't have to say, oh, that's me. I'm going through this or I'm going through that for the fear of disclosing your information. And so that's what it made me feel like friendships are so important because sometimes you have friends, but you're not even comfortable expressing how you feel or what you're going through for the fact of embarrassment, judgment. Someone's going to tell your business. It's going to go out, make the situation worse than what it really is. And so that's why I felt like friendships are very important. And then that's how I ended up coming up with the game.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I can resonate on every single point of that. Like you said, when life starts lifing and some people just don't have the tools to help you navigate those transitions and it feel hard of like, well, dang, these are my friends. So like, should I keep the friends? Is it something I'm doing? Or do I need a new village? And we've heard the term like no new friends. And so we're like, dang, it feels weird to start over, but these people are not like transitioning with my current situation. So I love how you took a personal experience to take action to like help people through that. So tell me more about the cards. I'd love to hear. I know others would love to hear about them.
Okay. So the cards have 101 conversational starters centered around questions like relationships, finances, goals, kids, vacation, religion, savings, just anything you think of is in there. Because those are the things that can kind of spark other conversations. So you'll have a conversation basically about something that says, are you feel like you're living your best life? Or do you feel like, what did you want to do when you grew up? And do you feel like you're doing it now? Or what ways are you learning how to live on a budget? How are you balling on a budget? Or how are you saving money? What kind of investments are you doing personally and financially? Those kind of things, because they can lead way to other conversations. And so it wasn't, the questions aren't too much focused on certain situations, but they're kind of leadway questions to where we can start having conversations and dialogue about other things. And so one of the questions even is like, what are your non-negotiables in friendships? Because we always talk about non-negotiables when we're talking about our romantic relationships, but we barely talk about non-negotiables in our friendships. And that can come to a conversation where, now I know my friend's non-negotiables. I know some of her boundaries because sometimes we're overstepping our boundaries in our friendships and not even knowing it because we never even opened a conversation or that door for it.
Oh, I love it. The word I just hear that screams all over what you just said is intimacy. Like intimacy, 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 connection. And I think that's something that's so important. And like you said, is so essential that, somebody's probably like, why is there a finance question about like, do I ball on a budget or whatever? Like, that's none of her business, but like, it could be because a lot of times, especially as friends, we can like peep out things that other people aren't able to see, sometimes even our own partners. And so by having that sister beside you that can catch those things, it's like, oh my goodness, like I know more about you. I know what makes you tick. I know what to ask you to join me in doing or not ask me to join me in doing. And so I have a question just of something that I've heard come up in my own personal experiences because I really enjoy intimate friendships. I'm very close to my friends. Sometimes a little too close to my friends. But we oftentimes I on the friendships that I have, just decide to disconnect with. The thing that I've heard when I've asked those deep questions is like, one, like, you're not my partner, or like, you're not my man. You don't need to be asking me things like that. Or, girl, you all up in my business. So, what do you think is like, as a therapist, like, what do you think is that root thing that's coming up for them when they're really rejecting that depth? Is it really like they don't want to feel like this is like your boo or your girlfriend or whatever, or is there a deeper fear of that depth, that of like getting that close to somebody and not knowing what's going to happen from it?
I think it differs from person to person. And I think the reason why it differs from person to person is because um, it has to do with our norms and our morals and our values that we grew up with, right? If you think about it, our norms, our values, our beliefs, a lot of those things are shaped in our childhood from the family that we grew up in, the community we grew up in, the schools that we attended, the people that we grew up with. And so our parents and our immediate family are the first people we learn to build relationships with, right? So if you have a family that taught you, for instance, that, what goes on in this family or what happens personally in our life stays between us, then sometimes you might, later on in adulthood and friendships, you might struggle being that vulnerable, right? Or
Yeah.
if you had a family member that you couldn't even trust, like I can't trust my own family, or I can't trust my own mother or my father or my brother or my sister, then you don't have that thing to go off of to build that trust, to be vulnerable. I can't feel comfortable to be vulnerable because the people I was supposed to feel vulnerable around, I can never be vulnerable with them anyway. You understand me? But if
Right.
you grew up in a balanced kind of, or well, we can say balanced, we can say healthy kind of household or community where it was mutual trust. It was mutual trust from one person to I can trust you with my deep, darkest secrets. It's not a problem. You understand? So I think that is where it stems from.
Yeah, I could fully see that. Like fully, that makes so much sense. Because I actually heard that in a relationship, but also it can happen in friendships of like, I didn't get close to you because the normal people that was supposed to get close to me didn't. The people that raised me and was in a house with me didn't even ask me that intimate of a question. They still don't know these intimate things about me. So it is hard when you're like, man, this doesn't make sense. Why does this? Because essentially, before your friend, you're a random stranger. Why does this random stranger care more about these intimate parts of me more than the people that I really would like to care and that I grew up with and was forced to share space with? So I can definitely see that for sure. Um,
Even if you have like hoovering parents, because like how sometimes you have parents who are hoovering, they're helicopters, they're
Mhm.
always in your business and they're prying. That can make you
That's
want
right.
to like, no, you asking me too much. You be a little bit more
Right.
hyper vigilant. Like, Mama, I couldn't have no peace. So it's just a lot that comes into play with that.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I understand because my dad was a hovering father. So I get it. Like, if I think it was hard for me, it either goes one way or the other, like you said, depending on the person. Either you're like, you know what, I had someone who was way too invasive, so I'm not sharing anything, or you're an oversharer because you were forced to overshare so much as a child that you're like, I don't even know boundaries anymore because I didn't know that I thought I had to tell you everywhere I'm going all the time because that's what my parents made me do. Yeah. So I think that's so good that you bring that together of like our childhood practices could really formulate what type of friends we show up as and how vulnerable we are, and that it's okay to be vulnerable. Um, so speaking of that vulnerability, what are some things that people possess that help people to know that's my person to open up to? You know, I think of Brene Brown when she talks about her vulnerability talk, and she says, you know, there's certain people who earn that opportunity to hear your story. And so she said, doesn't mean be fake or whatever, but there's just certain people that have the access to go a little deeper with you and earn the ability to hear your story. So I know a lot of people are like, you know, I just pick bad friends or I open up to the wrong people. What are some things that people possess that will help people be like, okay, this is the right person to open up to and be my friend?
I think things like active listening, when somebody's listening to you to understand and not listening to you to respond. When people are really trying to learn to get a meaningful connection and build a healthy boundaries with you. They have shared interests with you. They're on meaningful connections. I can vividly remember during that time that life was lifing, it was more of like I have a question in my card game that says, when you go through things, do you go through things alone? Like, do you like to retrieve and go through it and accept it and then come back? Or do you like to, talk about it? I'm a person, when the situation initially occurs, let me accept what I'm going through first, and then I'm gonna open up. So during my a period of acceptance, I remember friends vividly saying to me, like, you acting funny, you not talking, or so there was a lot of accusations being thrown. I think you jealous. And I'm like, what? You understand what I'm saying? So that you have to create that open space. You have to be able to reduce the stress. Like, you have to be somebody that when I come around you, if I'm stressed out, my stress level is reducing. You got to provide a sense of belonging. Don't make me feel like I'm on the outside when I'm supposed to really be on the inside. You understand what I'm
Mm.
saying?
Hmm. You are, girl, you dropping gems. I'm like, I need to be writing this down. Because that's true. I mean, I think everything that you said of a sense of belonging, you know, like not that you're just here and we just happen to be in the same space at the same time, but I feel like I belong. You know, I feel like I'm a part of this. And just again that willingness to be vulnerable and open up and be yourself and listen well and figure out I love also what you said about sharing boundaries. Because I find myself trusting people so much more when they let me know what their boundaries are. Because if you don't tell me what your boundaries are, and your boundary is like, don't call me after 9 o'clock, and I call you every night, and then you just go off and like, girl, I hate you call me at 9 o'clock all the time. I'm like, I never knew. I never knew that was. So now you've been building resentment and you've been acting weird, and I don't know why. And it's because, in my opinion, you didn't respect me enough to set a boundary.
But it's not even about the respect. We can take it back to
Mhm.
another thing. What you were saying is the main thing of being able to communicate. And a part of
Yes.
active listening is being able to, I hear you, you hear me. And I
Yes.
understand where you coming from and you understand where I'm coming from. So if we don't even
Mhm.
set a room for us to be able to openly communicate healthy, then there's nowhere way that we can get to respect. We can't get to active listening. We can't get to a meaningful connection. We can't even establish boundaries if we don't establish being able to communicate first.
Ooh. Girl, you snatching edges today because that's true. I mean, I hear the basics. Like, go back to the basics. I think we're thinking about who can I go on trips with, who can I go to brunch with, who can I do this stuff with, but like let's get to like the bare minimum of when I communicate to this person, does this person listen? Does this person pay attention? If I say, "Hey, can you repeat back, interpret what I just said to you?" Will they be able to interpret it in exactly how I said it or close to how I said it? And will they be able to like use that to move forward, or does it turn into them, or does it turn into just something different other than moving forward together? So I think, oh my goodness, that is so, so true because once you have that communication piece down and once you normalize communication, and I think that's something that like across the board, I think that's young people. I think actually, you know what? I'm gonna shout out our little Gen Zs. I think they're doing better than us in that sometimes because they're really open in communication. But I think as we get a little older, we're kind of a little more stuck in our ways. And so we feel like communicating, especially to a friend, we feel is a waste of time. I hear people like, I'm not gonna waste my breath on that. Or again, like, that's not my man. And so we just think that it's petty when in reality, like, this should be part of the normal practice of like, hey, can I unpack that thing that you did the other day? And whatever, because we're not gonna be perfect. I don't know where we got this idea that like two friends are like two perfect people together, because we're not. We're two humans still, and we're going to do human things to each other. And so it's okay to say, hey, you know, I'm not a big fan of that. Or, hey, I'd really love if you just like, instead of me calling you, that you would call me and check on me and be like, cool. I love
Uh-huh.
that you brought it back to that communication, because I think we skip over that step and then we're all really confused on why something feels weird or something feels off with somebody.
Yes. Yes, we do.
Hey y'all, hey, Tadara here, your merch queen. This is your reminder to load up on all your DivaDance swag needs by going to DivaDanceShop.com. We have so many new cute things like the long sleeve tees, water bottle charms, and the super cute DivaDance dresses. Every order is packed with love. Members of our community can use code PODCAST for free shipping off of your next order of $75 or more.
Okay, so thinking about those characteristics that people possess, this is a personal non-therapist opinion on just things that I see when I at least when I encounter friendships that don't work, or the friendships that I have the most just trouble with, is a thing of like self-confidence and self-esteem. And that doesn't mean I'm saying like if you have low self-esteem, you're not a good friend. But sometimes what I run into is someone is, like you said earlier, like someone thinking you're jealous, or someone's thinking you're trying to pull them down, where you're like, no, I'm just being myself, or I'm just trying to show up in the room. And sometimes if someone doesn't feel as fully confident in themselves, they'll kind of project it on you and make you feel like you're a bad person. Do you think you've seen or experienced that? And if so, how do you think, in the most empathetic way, what do you think is happening with that person, and how do we combat that?
I think I have had projection happen to me. Like when individuals aren't happy with their life, or either their life, their relationship, how their relationship is going with their children, they sometimes project that on you, or say things like, you know, your daughter's going to grow up to hate you, or um
Yeah.
and it's really not, my daughter's going to grow up to hate me. No, your daughter hates you, and so therefore you want to say that my daughter's going to grow up to hate me. You know, those kind of things. Those things possess, or even or I don't think that's a good idea for you. So I also have a self-help book. It's called the Glow Up Recovery Plan. And I talk
Mhm.
about how you can kind of identify positive and negative people in your life. And then you
Mhm.
identify the neutral people. And it's like the book has different exercises that you can go through, so you can help yourself glow up, basically. And I wrote that during that, when life was lifing time as well. But in it, I talk about how you take certain things to people, ideas, goals, or your feelings or your thoughts, and they have like encouraging words to say to you. Like, oh, that's such a great idea, or I think you can do it. Those are the positive people. Then you have the negative people, and negative people have nothing nice to say. They always say it's
Mhm.
not going to work, or you can't do that. But it's really, you couldn't complete those things, or you couldn't reach your goals. So therefore, you don't think I can do it. And that's where the projection
Mhm.
shows up. You'll start seeing them when you bring things to them, it's negative and naysayer things to them. And that's when you say, oh, that's projection. But in reality, it messes with our self-esteem and our self-awareness and our self-confidence at first. But if you realize that it's really not you, it's them. And a lot of times, like what your grandma used to say, what someone has to say about you says a lot about them than it does about you. And so you have to always repeat
Mhm.
those things. And so it will go back to, leaning more into positive self-talk. No, it's not really me, it's them. It's going to work. It's not, it's not going to fall apart like they say. You have to lean into more positive self-talk.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm gonna need to get that workbook because that sounds like a gem because I think a lot of us we just don't know how to sift that out, and especially when you're in a vulnerable place, as an entrepreneur, you have lots of crazy ideas that really feel crazy and you need to bring it to somebody. And of course, some of those crazy ideas are truly crazy and they can work or truly crazy and they just don't work. And so of course, like I want logic, I want reason, but also like I need some positivity that hey, at least I tried and at least that it makes sense. Or hey, the way you're doing it may not be the greatest, but let me add this on or let me get you this resource versus nah, it's just not gonna work. I think this is my therapist says don't use judging words, but I just want to judge it as like it feels lazy. It feels like this is all that I have to offer. And so I just kind of like stop it. Like, I mean, this is not going to work. Like, I don't know you're wasting your time on it because it's vulnerable for them to believe in you because it was already vulnerable enough for them to believe in themselves. So if they don't have the ability to believe in themselves and crazy things, why would they have capacity to believe in you? Um, and so when you have friends like this, because especially as a therapist, and I struggle with this as an empath, um, sometimes you have a friend that you're like, look, okay, I know they say some shabby things or they don't support me in this way, but it's because they went through this trauma, like they every time I get in a new relationship, I'm just like a hopeless romantic. This is not me. This is just like people. I'm hopeless romantic. And, I'm finding my way until I find my husband. And my friend's like, because all men are like this and men are terrible and this and that. And so and it's because maybe they came out of an abusive relationship, or maybe because, they had someone who cheated on them. And so when you know the situation, or that maybe some of their rhetoric or their behavior comes from not even necessarily a trauma, but just you understand their patterns, do you still be friends with them? Or are you like, I don't know if this is my person? Because, some people deserves grace. What do you think?
I mean, as we get older, our experiences shape our ideas about certain things. So now, not only we're dealing with the beliefs and values and norms that we grew up with, but we also are now dealing with the life experiences, things that we experience, whether it be cheating, lying, death, all type of things. So it scur our views on different things. And what I say is this is, what my belief is that, sometimes you don't have to cut a friend completely off, but you know where to put them at. And so this is my friend for this specific thing. This is my shopping buddy. This is my vacation friend. Yeah. This is not the friend I go to for a listening ear and a soundboard. She's not for that reason. She's over here, and that's how you have to deal with that. If you feel that there's benefits in the relationship and that the whole relationship is not toxic. So you have to, put them in their category and deal with them as such.
Yes, I fully agree. So, a long time ago, I started doing workshops around this, but I created this thing called my red, yellow, and green friends. So my green friends, that's like red's on the way outside, yellow's in the middle, and then green is like the dot in the middle, and it's very small.
Mm-hmm.
So
Those
green
are
are those
close
very
friends.
close,
They're in
like
the
you
middle.
said. Yes, super close friends. That's a reciprocated green friend. So I can't be your green and you not be my green. Like we have to both be greens together. I feel safe with you, those shared boundaries, that active listening, all those things. Yellow friends are like, you're not a bad friend. You're just like, you don't possess all those things that would make me like open up completely, or maybe we just don't have that shared interest in that way. And then red, as you said, is go shopping friends. I call them the go to the club friends. Like, because you need that. You do need people that's like, oh my gosh, when I'm down, like I just want to go shopping, I'm gonna go with this person. If I want to go to a concert and we just want to have fun, I'm gonna go with this person. And that's not always the deep person. But also that red friend is not the person I'm gonna call like if I'm on the way to a funeral and I need someone to come with me. And so that's really helped me because I feel like everybody was my bestie. And then if everybody wasn't my bestie, you aren't my friend at all. And so I had to find some middle ground on how do you build village where you understand, and I think that awareness is so key. I'm hearing just a lot of skill set in here of like, you have to have your own awareness and you have to be very intentional and present to know where people fall and to be honest with yourself of what type of friend people are so that you can categorize them correctly. So with that, in that realm, say if like you got a bestie that's been your ride or die for like 10 years, but like all of a sudden she's just not serving what this season is trying to serve. And you're like, I think like they need to move to like more of a surface friend. Like we really have fun like when we go shopping. We have really fun when we get our nails done. But like, I don't know, she just hasn't been showing up in the way I need her to with these deep things. How do you have a conversation with somebody about that possibility of like, hey, I don't think our friendship looks in the way that it used to look?
So I want to say, do you feel like do we have to have that conversation? Is the first thing. Because sometimes their conversation is not even needed, because if you had a close friend that's been your bestie for years, you can still engage with them on the level that you've been engaging with them, like shopping, vacationing, doing those things, and still not bring them the green dot kind of information because you felt like they are not meeting your needs in that way. So it doesn't have to stop. Like you can still have conversation with them without telling them, my home's in foreclosure, or you're going through a divorce. You can tell them afterwards. You don't have to tell them during, because you know that they won't bring nothing to the situation, no type of emotional or mental support about that. So let me just go with them because this is my, when I say my break. They help me break from reality. And that may look like shopping, going out to eat. You don't have to share everything with everybody. So that is where I'm saying, where I want to know, like, what makes you feel like we have to have that conversation? Unless there is some level of toxicity in that relationship, then the conversation may not be needed.
Okay.
You just might have to move the pieces.
Got it. So say if that person, okay, I'm for example, I'm in like my wedding planning process. And so, I've been dancing with that of like, there's certain people that I thought would have lots of information about like my wedding planning process that don't. And there's some people that got really offended by that, or there's some people that got really hurt by that. So, say if you do have that bestie that has kind of slid out that thing, but they're like, why are you not telling what's going on with your life? Like, what's going on? Like, what's up? Like, why are you not telling me about your relationship? Why are you not telling me about your job? Like, you're acting funny. How do you respond to that then?
Okay, so if they're asking for the conversation, that's different. I would think you be if they asking for the conversation, be open and honest. And if you had trouble forming your thoughts, sometimes it's best to kind of write out what you want to say to them, or bullet points of what you want to say to them. Read it back to yourself to make sure that it's not, you're not being accusatory. And make sure you're writing it in like first person. I feel like, I don't like when you did, using your I words, being more assertive, not being passive aggressive or aggressive in your communication. And that looks like using more I words, followed by what I would like for you to do, or what I would have thought that you would have done is this, but because you haven't done this, this is what I'm doing now. Being open.
That's fair. That's good. That's really good. And that sounded so simple, but that's scary. Because I think, someone's natural inclination is to get defensive, or to be offended about it. And it feels so exposed to say, hey, like I really wanted you to show up this way and you didn't. And this made me feel this way. And see if someone will receive that. In hopes that it saves and heals the relationship.
And that's another thing that I'm glad that you brought up that is scary because, when I'm in sessions with my clients, I like to tell them, if you're going to go or you're preparing to express how you feel or your thoughts about a situation to someone, you have to be prepared for the reaction. And if you're not prepared for the reaction, then that means that you're not prepared to, disclose how your true thoughts or feelings, right? So I tell them you have to be prepared for a couple different reactions. One, for someone to deny and say that they did not do it. Two, they might ignore you and provide you no experience, no explanation, give you no response, nothing. Three, they might say, oh, it's on you. They blaming you and not them. They may stop speaking to you, or they might do all of the above. They might deny it, stop speaking to you, then accuse you and become very defensive, and then come back and apologize, and followed by change behavior. So you just have to be ready for the roller coaster because you just don't know what that person is going to respond. So if you're not ready for a response, and sometimes no response is a response. If you're not ready for that, then don't walk yourself into that conversation.
Yeah, agreed. And I want to just loop around what you said grandma used to say of how people talk about you is more about them and not about you. So remembering that, something I wrote an article about this like a few years ago of finding retribution for yourself and not for others, and I was like, there was a conversation I had to have with somebody, but I didn't want to go in saying, I hope this conversation makes them feel blank, because if it doesn't, then I'll think the conversation was a failure. So I had to redefine what a successful conversation is. Like, I'm honest, I'm thoughtful, I share my experiences, I actively listen to what they have going on, and I did my part. The response isn't part of the success in that. And so reminding people of like you just said, you may get a host of responses, but that doesn't mean that the conversation wasn't successful. It may have been very successful because you were honest. You articulated in the best way that you could. You were thoughtful about it. You were mindful. You brought it up at a good time, and you actually delivered. And whatever they did on their end just has more to do with them than you. And that, I know that's a hard thing because oftentimes, again, it's perceived that like it's always on that person who brings it up of like, well, you always have a problem, or you always want to start drama. We correlate drama to confrontation, and it doesn't always have to be that way. Thinking
And then,
about confrontation. Oh, go ahead.
I was about to say something about confrontation, but we probably was about to lead up into there. I was about to say sometimes confrontation or conflict is not always bad. Sometimes it takes the confrontation or conflict for us to get to a resolution, for us to build a better relationship, whether it be platonic, romantic, anything. Sometimes you have to go through the fire to get to the end of the thing. So like sometimes people just don't want to go through it.
Yes. Because they think you're going to get burned, and it's not. It doesn't always have to be that way. It doesn't always have to be. I remember I went to a therapist a couple years ago. We did a smooth 4 sessions together, and here's why. I talked to her about like, I have some things that I really want to unpack with my friend, but my friend doesn't do confrontation, and that really bothers me. She said, "Oh, so you're just an aggressive person?" I said, "No, ma'am, I'm not." I said, "I want to have a confrontational conversation. That doesn't mean I want to punch her, but it means I want to say, hey, this really hurt my feelings, and I want to talk about it. And I'm sure I did something that hurt your feelings, and I want to hear it because I want us to find whatever resolution it is. Either we don't be friends, or I apologize, but I want to talk about it, and I don't want us to be weird and like acting like it didn't happen when it did." And she's just like, "You sound aggressive." And I'm like, "You sound like you're not my therapist anymore." And so I think like we have this thing in society where like if you're confrontational, we say confrontational when it's like, no, it's just I want to have a conversation. Now, the conversation, as you said, it can be assertive, or it can be passive aggressive, or it can be passive, or it can be aggressive. There's different ways that confrontation exists, and there's different ways that confrontation can be received. And so as all of us work on our emotional intelligence, we can see, oh my gosh, if I never had confrontation, I would never know what your needs are. And I would never trust you that you're not holding resentment. You're not just boiling in your head about me and then one day you ghost me. We think that's so much more normal when like it's not. The confrontation is healthier and normal if it's done correctly. So the question I want to ask around confrontation is, how do you think media, TV shows, maybe even music play a role into how we view friendships, how we view communication in friendships, and even how we view confrontation?
I want to say it's more maybe social media and reality shows. The view friendships. And so one thing that pops in my head, because I'm a reality show junkie, I'm not even gonna lie. I love reality shows.
No shade, no
And
shade
I
at
watch
all.
them. I watch the same episode more than one time because I need to catch everything. But I think that shows a lot of things, or it's perpetuating what friendship kind of supposed to look like. And so I don't know if you're watching Real Housewives of Atlanta this new season,
Ooh,
but
that's a
you
lot.
know that Portia, are you watching it?
I'm not. I can't keep up. I watch other reality shows with with other issues, but the Housewives, I'm like, ooh, y'all take it so far.
Well, so that's a big of like friendship. So Portia and Shamia, they've been friends since childhood, and so this year, Shamia is not only like a friend of Portia on the show; she's actually a castmate. And so what you see in the dynamics of the cast is they're trying to pin them against each other. I don't know if if either of these girls really have ill feelings or envies or jealousness between them two, but there's a scene where they sit down and they talk. And so Shamia tells her how she feels, and Portia is trying not to have an argument or not say anything to set Shamia off because she doesn't want to break up with Shamia and be breaking up with her husband at the same time. Like it would have been too much. And so that's where you see like there was confrontation, but conflict. I don't know if they came to where they didn't show all of it. So maybe they did talk and maybe some of the scenes was out of it, but they didn't feel that it wasn't a full dialogue, but they both expressed how they felt. And it came to like a resolution to where when the other girls would bring something about their friendship, Shamia really wanted Portia to stand up for their friendship and not, talk about their friendship, cry or say anything. Just they were going to be like a front, a positive front. Like, they made a pact to where if they say something, we already discussed it, we're not feeding into them. And I feel like that is like the perfect example of how friends are supposed to be. Like we gonna talk about this, but we're not gonna talk about this amongst the group. Or we're not gonna do this in the open, in the public. Let's talk about this, and then when we're in public or around other people, we're gonna be a united front. I think that is it was kind of like a perfect way, but I feel like the reality shows kind of scar friendships because it's like, why, what? And then now you would think it's okay because now you're seeing them do it on TV.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. I think the hard part about reality shows and even social media too, is interesting that you said both of those things, is like it's only a small snippet of the whole entity of friendship, you know? So I think there's so many other pieces that you don't go into. So of course, of course it's for dramas, for TV and all that stuff. So you just follow those certain things. And then I think with social media, again, you only get a part of a friendship, so you see the trips, you see like the since high school things, you see like the parts you want to see, but you don't know the ins and outs of different conversations that lead to those certain safe spaces. And so I always try to seek out like just spaces and shows that really highlight and showcase positive friendship, because especially like through girl friendships, we grew up with the show Girlfriends. They were awful people. Like they was like, I was like, I don't know what is going on in this show, everybody is toxic, but that was our thing of like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be girlfriends, we're gonna all be rich, or I'm gonna be single slash not single slash single, and we're gonna make terrible decisions, and we're just gonna like cuss each other out every now and then and be like, girl, let's go shopping. And that's what friendship is. And it's not, or it doesn't have to be that. And so figuring out how do we find spaces where like we benefit off of friendship through media and even through songs and everything. And how do we find some positive encouragement, especially even for our kids, like our next generation, of what friendship should look like, how you should treat your friends. A show that comes to mind for me is iCarly. Like, Carly was so mean. And not Carly, but what was her name? Sam. Like, and of course it's a kids show. Again, it's funny, but it's like this is something that kids can take in and think about, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do with my bestie. And it possibly doesn't have to be that way. So I love one that you depicted this so well from the Housewives. You're gonna make me go watch it now. My fiance loves the show, so I'm like, now I have to go watch it and sit there and depict everything. So thinking about like talking about things in public versus private, talking about confrontation, all those different things. What's a good way for a friend to show accountability without being over judgmental? I think that's the big thing we run into is learning how to not be judgy, but also learning how to be accountable and say, girl, you shouldn't have probably done that. Like that would have been not the best idea. So how do we balance that?
So it's gonna come from friends differently. Like it's just based on the kind of friend that you're talking to. Cause I got different level of friends. I got friends that I've had for a very long time. I have friends that I met now in my, my 40s and in my 30s. And I have friends that I've known since I was like a child. So my friends, when I tell them a child, it got curse words in it when they tell me, but I know it's love. You know what I'm saying? Like it's love. Girl, like, girl, why would you do that? Like, but that's the kind of friendship we had. But then when you have other friendships and, you're dealing with somebody that you might need to handle a little bit with care, it's, what made you more on a motivational kind of, motivational therapy, motivational enhancement therapy. You want to really more seek understanding to have them accountability. Like, did you honestly think that was right when you did that?
Mm-hmm. Or just tell me your thought process.
How would you feel if someone did it to you? That's more of somebody taking accountability because you want them to figure out on their own that, oh, maybe I was wrong. Well, now that you say it like that, and then, summarizing what they just said. So you're saying that if someone did this to you, you wouldn't like it, but you were really comfortable in doing that, right? Oh, okay.
Exactly.
That's the kind of thing of accountability you are when you're doing healthy communication. But then it's safe to say that somebody, if you have a friendship and if I'm always crossing your boundaries, more than likely I have a hard time somewhere in my life setting boundaries. Because people who really have porous boundaries are not able to set healthy boundaries. Sometimes they don't know how to respect other people's boundaries. So you gotta, so sometimes that can be a case for that as well.
Woo. You're speaking on these boundaries for sure. I feel like that's a whole segment in itself. But I love, again, and I think the word I want to bring up is that can feel scary. That can feel scary to hold a friend accountable. And I think it takes extra work and extra brain power to hold them accountable without being heavily judgy. Like I think it's easier to say, girl, you're just dumb. Like, why would you even do that? Like, that's dumb. Rather than, hey, I don't know if that was the best decision of things to do. Tell me your thought process around that. Like, I'm here to support you. I really am. But I really don't know if that was, the best decision. Like, do you think we want to unpack some other ways that we can handle this? I think it's hard because a lot of times people don't feel supported if you don't like rock with them. You know, if they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go slash his tires, and you're like, girl, it's no need to do that. You're like, oh, so you're on his side? It's like, no, that's illegal. So like, you know, how you show up and show up as a ride or die, which I have, you know, if I had my own little whole segment, I would talk about the ride or die thing, because sometimes it's time to get out the car. And so, you know, making sure that you're holding people accountable to being a good person and saying, I support you as a person for sure. I support where you're trying to go and what you're trying to do holistically. So if you slash his tires, girl, you're finna lose your job. And I wholly support your job and you working. So let's not slash his tires. Let's figure out some other way to release his anger. Let's figure out some other way to have a conversation or not have a conversation with them. But like, we can't do this one. But I think it definitely takes an extra level of work to be mindful on how to show up for people and accountability without being extra judgy. I especially hear a lot of people say something, you know, when they're just like going off with somebody and they're like, well, I just want to be honest. Like, I'm an honest person and that's just who I am. So you can't change that.
I
What?
think that's code word for I'm about to be very offensive. I'm about to offend you. I'm about to say something I know that's probably going to hurt your feelings. You know, I mean, you know, you can say it just depends on the tone. It depends on the tone and the context of the conversation. Because when somebody's like, I just want to be honest, you know, but we're already having a heated discussion, that means you probably about to say something offensive. You're probably about to
Yes.
offend me. And I'm not
Yes.
gonna say I've never used the word. Well, I want to be honest and open with you, but when I say that, it's probably a warning that you probably not gonna like what I'm about to say.
Yes. And that's okay if you don't like what I say, because it's sometimes you don't like what I say, but like you said, it's, do you not like what I say because I'm being mean, or do you not like what I'm saying because it's true? Those are two different things. You know, if we say something, we all have to say stuff that's really hard to swallow. And you're like, man, I didn't want to hear that. I really didn't, but you're right. But I didn't want to hear it. But if you just coming in nasty, I heard nothing that you said. I hear your
Nothing.
tone. I mean, you see the shoulders, like it just is what it is. Like that's
When
how they come
when
with
you
the
start doing
energy.
this,
When the shoulder moves, you're out of here. Like you're done. So I think it's understanding, just how to, again, I'm just taking it all the way back to the beginning. Our childhood practices, what we saw growing up, what we seen around us of like when people share information with us, were they mindful or did they just say, well, I mean, I'm just being honest? And did they not have those emotional tools? So then you brought those emotional tools into your friendships and you're wondering why no one wants to be friends with you. And that's super hard. That's so hard because you don't know what you don't know. And when you've been like around that environment for so long, you don't know that there are other ways to talk to people. And there's other ways to get people to do positive things without shaming them or without being harsh, or without being super blunt or without being passive aggressive. I think
or
that's
being
something that we kind of
manipulative,
sleep on. And that's what I was about to say is that passive aggressive / manipulation where it's like, I'm going to like secretly bring up the thing to see if you'll change your behavior, but like, I'm not going to actually tell you. Or I'm going to like, I don't know, do some stuff to set you up in a situation to change your behavior or test you. And that's not cool. You know, like be straightforward. Just say, hey, this is a thing that's bothering me. And let's work on it. Not let me set you up in a scenario to test you to see if like you're really going to be that person or not, because you off the bat, there's no trust. Like you've set a foundation of sinking sand because there's no trust there. Yes.
Yep.
So before we close out, I want to talk about one last thing that I think a lot of people are looking for, in being a healthy friend is, how do you maintain a healthy, you said the word balance earlier, and balance is, you know, subjective, but how do you maintain a healthy balance / lifestyle, showing up for others, but also showing up for yourself? You know, like how do you know, what are some things that you look for in yourself that you're like, okay, I'm doing pretty good with this. And what are some things that you're like, whoa, I'm doing way too much for others and not enough for myself?
You want me to say for personally for me, or
Anything,
because
personally or
personally for
professionally.
me, so it looks like you knowing. I feel like when you know yourself and you know your limits, then you know where to have that healthy balance at. For example, you're a clinician just like I'm a clinician, and some days we're talking to people all day, right? So, when I get off work, I want to come home and I want quiet. And quiet doesn't
Mhm.
mean that I'm not hearing anything. That means I don't want to use my brain to talk to people. So I might be watching TV or something for 2 hours or 3 hours, so I can come back and reset and be able to provide that conversation. But that's the same thing with with other people, like as individuals, that we know our boundaries. So being able to communicate that. So what it looks like for me is I tell my family and friends, like, I may not go out Monday through Friday because, my job is it's taxing on me sometimes because I have to talk a lot. So sometimes I don't feel like talking. So if you don't hear from me throughout the week, or you don't hear from me for a long time, I'm not mad. I'm not sad. There's nothing wrong with me. I just don't feel like talking. And I have my people that I feel like talking to throughout the day or throughout the week. And you may not be the person that I'm going to call. But so that's, again, goes back to communicating and being honest and setting those boundaries. But also being there for people when you know that they really need you, despite some of your personal beliefs. So sometimes, just like in relationships, romantic relationships, I keep going back to that, is because I feel like the same things that you do to build a healthy romantic relationship is what you need to build a healthy friendship. So sometimes in relationships, in our romantic relationships, we have to make sacrifices. Like, I really don't want to do this, but I know my husband really needs me to be supportive and emotional there. So therefore I'm going to be there. So that goes back to making sure you're being there. You're that safe space, because sometimes you really need it. Right.
Yeah.
I feel that is something that's really needed, and that trust and that respect. So I feel like open communication, being able to make some sacrifices, being able to be vulnerable, being able to being vulnerable, and being able to allow someone to be vulnerable for you, be around you, is important. And respect is another thing.
I love it. I love all of those. And those, I hope people listening are jotting those down, because it's hard to, or it's easy to just neglect those, and not know where your markers are. On a car, when the oil's low, the oil light comes on. When your gas is low, the gas thing comes on. Like, do we look at our dashboard? Or do we just push? I know on my Honda, you can just push a button and the whole thing disappears. Like, you could drive around as there's nothing going on. Do we push that button and pretend that the emergency thing hasn't come up? Or do we stop, pause, and show up? And I love, because I think a lot of times in friendship and relationship conversations, we focus so much on ourselves that you still said, okay, hey, if that person really needs me, show up. But if you're showing up, make sure you have poured back in the way that you needed to pour out. I love that, because no one says that part. Everyone's just like, it's about you. Take care of you. Self-care. And it's like, no, we're
You
supposed
need
to
to
show up for
reset.
each
You
other.
gotta rest.
Yes. Yes. And we'll be resetting for like years, So I love how you're just so wise, because you gave us all the competencies to say, like, now we can show up for people. Now we can show up for ourselves. Now we can be good friends. Now we can find good friends and keep good friends and restore friendships that are either great, blooming, or have like withered away a little bit. And I think that has just expanded our world so much, especially as women. We really struggle with the friendship lane because of so many negative emotions that come up with it, and truly fear. I want to just keep in that empathy of, we're afraid of being hurt, we're afraid of opening ourselves, but you've given us so many tools that we can now practice and use to, one, be greater friends within ourselves, 'cause that is 50% of the relationship. And 2, to be able to find great friends, and even better, put them in their category of like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect go to the movies friend. And then this is the crying on the floor with me friend. Transparently, I just had the crying on the floor friend with me like 40 minutes ago. Like I was really going through something, and she got off work and came here. And that's that green friend, you know? And so I think that is so important, that when you know where people are, you're able to have healthy relationships where you don't feel guilty, where they don't feel guilty, where you don't feel undermined when they don't feel that. And you all could be happy and blooming. And when life is life, and as you said in the beginning, you don't feel empty, you actually feel full. That's a beautiful feeling.
Okay. So, I mean, and I also want to, I don't know if before we end, I want to be able to like make sure that I say that friendships can have a positive effect or a negative effect on your mental well-being, right? And so sometimes just having fewer healthy friendships may be preferable than larger friendships. And that may look like just having my core 5, and that's okay. Some of the negative impacts that, unhealthy friendships can have on you is like, it increase your risk of depression. It can increase your risk of anxiety, and increase feelings of loneliness. And those who don't have healthy friendships sometimes are at higher risk for suicide, and social isolation. It can lead to like poor physical health. You can end up with heart disease, weakened immune system, increased use of substances and alcohol. I feel like if anyone's listening and they're having a hard time building friendships, seek, support from a mental health specialist. If you move to a new town and you're new and you just don't know where to start meeting friends, there's plenty of like Facebook groups that have like specialized interests that you can join. They have meetup groups that meet up in person now. There's group me's. Some single mothers, those things that you can do, like when you have your kids involved in activities, find a cool mom you and the mom might vibe. That might be your tribe. Those are the things that we need to look to, especially as adults now, because most of our friendships that we make in adulthood now is in workplace. No longer are they like in a community, because we went to those same schools. It's more in the workplace. Don't always think that a work friend can't be a close friend. Sometimes that's the only place or only outlet people have, because that's where we're spending majority of our time now, is at work, to form that friendship. You just have to give it time to form. So yeah, just always remember like communication, being able to communicate your feelings effectively, and especially when you're hurt or when you need an extra support, be able to communicate that. Make sure your friends are providing that emotional support to you, that you receive emotional support, and empathy in a safe space. Be sure that that they're your personal confidence boosters. They like your friends, they're your cheerleaders. They telling you, keep going, you got this, Make sure they're promoting your healthy habits, whether that's maintaining your goals, pursuing your goals, eating healthy. And it may look like, I have a friend that's also a colleague, and I'm like, girl, you cannot eat that because you told me the doctor said, X, Y, and Z. Like, why are you eating that? It's not going to be too many times you're going to be able to follow me telling me you're going to get some fried chicken. You know what I'm saying? Those are the kind of friends you need to show up to you. Like, they're your tribe. Those are your safe people now that you're an adult. And sometimes, we don't have close family connections, and that's why we need that healthy tribe.
Oh, yes. Anya, girl. You're wise. And I thank you so much. I've learned so much today. I'm sure those are listening have learned so much today. Where can we find you on social media?
Okay, you can find me on social media at Pop and Talk. And I'm not a big poster on social media. I apologize, but something falls to the wayside. And Instagram falls to the wayside at times. I want to try to get back into it, but you can find me at Pop and Talk, which is POPNTALK on Instagram. You can find also, that's my website, which is www.popandtalk.com. That's a way that you can contact me. You can find my book on Amazon, which is called The Glow Up Recovery Plan. It's a self-help book. And then you also can find my Pop and Talk cards are on my website at popandtalk.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being you. Thank you for sharing your story and for using your story and your experiences to create and to produce. Definitely will be getting a workbook soon. I already have them pop and talk cards. They have actually strengthened a lot of friendships in my life, things that I never knew about people I considered my best friends. So truly, thank you for everything that you've created. For everyone listening, thank you for your time. We look forward to hearing from you what you thought of this episode and hear more about how you're going to strengthen your friendships. So please tune in next time. We can't wait
And
to
I want
share
to thank
more.
you, Dr. April, for thinking of me.
Thank you. Oh, of course.
Because
Yes.
I thank you for thinking of me, because I think we met like 2-3 years ago. So like for you to call me and to reach out to me and think of me is like, wow, like I'm really making a difference. Somebody really, really want to hear what I say. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I think it's DivaDance for having me. So thank you so much. I appreciate this.
Yes. Well, everyone take care. We will talk to you next time. Until then, have a great day.